think part of the rise in the popularity of analog RPGs comes from the ability to create human connection without screens as an intermediary. And solo RPGs give us an opportunity to build human connection with ourselves. If you've never played one, I encourage you to do so. A friend described them as D&D for people with no friends, but I think they're wonderful storytelling opportunities, and they might let you dial in and get a little reflective. Our next speaker took a solo RPG that she designed to be played during COVID at sunset and turned it into an art installation that you may have found if you sat on the right park bench in New York City or some other cities as well. She's been featured at the Seattle Art Museum as well as Culture Hub. Please welcome to the stage, April Soetarman.
Hi to everyone here online in the future. My name is April Soetarman. I'm an Indonesian American artist, designer, and writer with a background in architecture. I make public art, interactive installations, immersive theater, games, and design objects. I'm currently based in New York. A bit of background, my art practice initially started 10 years ago in guerrilla street art, placing words in public space using a familiar everyday design language. This crosswalk sign that says push to remember at crossroads with push to forget. For the most part, these pieces are not officially sanctioned. There are signs like these installed across multiple cities. This sign that says, attention, you are wonderful and deserve every happiness. I define delight as the intersection of positive and unexpected, and this is something delightful I'd want you to come across in your city. So this leads into my main project today, The End of the Day, a public audio installation that can only be played at sunset. I'm going to be talking about what it is in the final form right now as a public art installation, the inspirations, context, and how it started as an online game, and then new design problems I had to solve for adapting it from online to in real life, and then my personal goals for the piece and some of the public response and results. It actively ran in New York City for 3 years from 2020 to 2023, and also in Los Angeles and Seattle, and it's still occasionally remounted to this day. So yeah, The End of the Day is a public audio installation that can only be played at sunset. It's a guided audio experience about a moment many, many years from now when you are looking back and reflecting on a life well lived. The installation consists of a series of engraved brass plaques installed on benches, always facing towards the sunset over the water. The instructions read, the end of the day, a local phone number, make yourself comfortable, call at sunset. So again, it can only be experienced at sunset. If the number is dialed outside of sunset hours, the participant receives a short message inviting them to come back at the right time and call again. If the participant dials the number around sunset, a 10-minute guided narration will play. There are a series of prompts to contemplate with pauses in between. Reflections about loved ones, moments of past wonder, times when you felt connected to the world. The player is invited to think of responses from memory or picture a fiction from their imagined future. At the beginning of the call, the listener is told that the piece will take about 10 minutes and that the overall tone is quiet, contemplative, and hopeful. This is so they kind of know what they're getting into, having dialed a number on a park bench, and also help establish expectations. This piece is very meditative, but it's intentionally not meant to be a meditation. Here's an excerpt from the introduction. This piece is not about what will happen tomorrow, or the next month, or even a year from today. One day, many, many years from now, you'll be sitting on a porch, watching the sunset in the distance. It will be a perfect evening, and you will feel completely and utterly at peace. In that moment, you will start to look back and reminisce about your life. The End of the Day is a guided audio experience about the good moments in your life so far and those that are yet to come. So in November 2020, I installed The End of the Day at 4 locations across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. And then from 2021 to 2023, it got installed in 16 more Seattle, Los Angeles, and more New York City locations. With the nature of guerrilla public art, some get removed 2 weeks later, some have stayed up for years. So when I first made this piece, it was September 2020 in New York. Summer's ending, and the days are getting shorter and cooler. We are eyeing winter right around the corner. The news cycle is relentless. The 2020 election is coming up. It feels like circumstances are changing every single day. We are all collectively exhausted. At the time, I was taking a making personal games online class at the School of Ma on the side for fun and structure, and I wanted to make a game about, well, that time. So the initial problem I was addressing was 2020. Well, it felt like we could only take things a single day at a time, if even. I wanted to create something that would be a brief respite from the despair of the present. Not to solve it, of course, but to provide some sort of relief, a short opportunity to zoom out to a big picture perspective and change the time horizon. Early in 2020, I learned of the genre of solo tabletop role-playing games through the works by game makers like Jian Shim and Xingyin Core. The loose definition, from my understanding, is a self-run game where you are given a set of rules or directions. So, a role-playing game that you play alone without a game master or other players. Sometimes they use common props like dice or cards for mechanics, or perhaps drawing or map making. And there's a particular type of, journaling games where there are prompts that you write and do by yourself. So I originally developed this game as a solo RPG, as a journaling or prompts game. I had the idea that was perhaps going to be a Twine game or a booklet. So starting out in playtests, I held live online playtests over Zoom, where I narrated the game with a series of visuals, such as these, guiding the players. These initial playtests were to figure out narration, the wording of the prompts, the timing, also just how folks responded to the game, like vibe check, fine tune, see if it was effective and did what I wanted it to do. So at the start of the live Zoom game, I would gather all the participants, then turn my camera off and begin narrating. So I would narrate these prompts aloud and then have the associated sunset image up for a full minute to give you time to contemplate. So in October 2020, I ran 7 virtual playtests with 40 international participants aged 19 to over 60, with time for feedback and questions afterwards. I took in feedback and made some changes after every test. Most participants said they were calmer and more centered after. Many wanted to experience the piece again. Some participant feedback was, it made me feel a sense of peace that I haven't felt since March. A shared experience that was very profound and emotionally true in our own ways. A balm for our times, something that will grant you some peace and radical hope this week. So again, I thought I was getting feedback for making a Twine game or booklet. However, I got a lot of feedback that folks really liked the live narration aspect, the voice guidance, the intentional pauses, and the fact that you had another person guiding you and you couldn't just speed read through the entire game or speed click through the entire game. However, I couldn't run it at that scale. I wanted something that would work without me personally running it every time. And after a playtest with my friend, the artist Oliver Farshi, also known as Oliver Blank, who had done dial-in phone pieces in his gallery work, we had a conversation about how to make it standalone by putting it into the public space. So the new focus, I wanted to make it available to a larger audience through an outdoor installation, one of the safest ways we could still enjoy public art away from screens. There was a lot of screen fatigue in 2020 as well. The piece did need complete focus just for the 10 minutes. I didn't want someone trying to play the game when they also had 20 other tabs open, or we were watching a show or getting distracted by other things on the internet. And that's where the idea to put a phone number on the bench came from. So, a lot of player considerations that I'll go into. One main challenge was priming participants and getting them in the right headspace, especially if they were to unexpectedly stumble across the piece. This was done by specifying the site locations. So the bench sites were all accessible, not too crowded, also safe in the evening, and also by specifying the sunset time. If you're walking along a waterfront park at sunset, you're already a little more contemplative, slowed down, and appreciative of your surroundings. With this location and time restriction, it helped create the conditions where they're already more open and appreciative of this type of work. Also, with COVID safety, it was outdoors and you only needed the phone. The time restriction was done with the Twilio app. And again, I wanted to make sure the sites were accessible with like public transit or walking, very low hardware. Again, you only need a phone, um, and easy to get to with clear prompts. The physical design of the piece, I used a familiar design language, these engraved brass plaques mounted on benches. We've seen these type of plaques before. There's a limited space, so the call to action had to be really clear and succinct with short, clear instructions. Make yourself comfortable, call it sunset. And of course, there's no branding or URLs or promotion or hashtags. It's just this is the piece. It is on the bench. Um, you're invited to participate. So there was a new issue now that I was developing this piece. There was the pause or silence problem. So the original piece had a narration with about minute-long pauses. And during the live performance, there are clear expectations about being present, and you know that the narrator is there even when they're not talking. With this new iteration, I didn't want people to think that the piece was broken or hang up early. Again, there's a minute-long pause, and you really needed to keep the users engaged. And if someone was like, oh, listening for a full minute, they didn't have a sense of time exactly, they might think that it had ended early or something was wrong. So I worked with Oliver, who's a fantastic musician and sound designer, who composed a very light music that would sound good over the phone to hold for the pauses. And we didn't want soundtrack or sound effects or hold music. It was just a very light touch to let you know that it's there. So hundreds of people have seen this plaque at sunset, sat on the bench, and dialed. Some knew it existed and sought it out. Others just stumbled across it and took a chance. Here's a very quick website with the map of locations that was up for 3 years at the end of the day.guide. It had some information about the piece, the map. You were given this URL if you completed the piece. The website is no longer up, but it does redirect to my current information about the piece if you are free to check it out. The end of the day public installation actively ran from 2020 to 2023, and it was actively getting calls the entire time. I will say folks in New York were the most active and most likely to dial a phone number on a bench. It's still getting calls in New York City as of this year, 2025, even though I officially sunset the piece at the end of 2023. Most folks will stay for the entire experience. I've had many repeat callers, even strangers I've met in person who said they did it with their parents or partners or friends. There are repeat fans who emailed me when the piece was broken for daylight savings time, because I forgot to account for daylight savings time in my initial code. Many of the initial playtesters wanted to experience the piece again, either by attending another live performance or going to the location and redialing the number at the later date. I've also gotten some very lovely thank you emails. One review called it an oasis of much needed quietness in the middle of a crazy season in the city that never sleeps. The piece also unexpectedly won a lot of design awards and press, so it helped get support and funding for the later installations in 2021 to 2023. It was a No Proscenium Critics Pick in 2020, an Interaction Design Awards 2021 finalist, and brought back for Culture Hub Refest in New York City and LA in 2022, and just this month at Worlds in Play in August 2025, this past month. So honestly, I made this very personal piece to capture my feelings about that particular time and how I wanted to help myself get through it. So now it's 5 years later, 2025, and some things have changed and some have not. The world is different, though I think some of the echoes are too familiar, and that is why I think the work still holds up for this current time. I wanted to create something that would be a brief respite from the despair of the present, especially in that I'm not going to say that everything will be okay. That would be empty and disingenuous. Instead, this piece asks, what would it mean to be able to grow old on the terms that you choose? With this piece, I would like to invite you to consider that someday in the future, you will be okay, and you will look back on the places you've been, and the people you've loved, and the life you've led with something akin to joy. Anyway, thank you for being here. Happy to chat. Feel free to reach out. Again, I'm April Soetarman, website and contact info here, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for that talk, April. And I wish that one of those benches was closer to me. But I love that this talk highlights the ways that our game design can really resonate in the core of somebody, particularly when we're designing for the current moment. And even if we're not making art installations, we also can craft our conventional games to have those elements of resonance and connection as well. Possibilities are endless. If you want to learn more about April's work, you can follow their Weird Side Projects Instagram at Weird Side Projects. You can also follow her on Instagram or on LinkedIn at April Soetarman.